First tonight, the UN says that since Israel began its military offensive in Rafah, the amount of humanitarian aid getting into the Gaza Strip has gone down by 2/3. The Rafah crossing had been the main point of entry of relief into the Palestinian territory until Israel seized control of it earlier this month. On Wednesday, Israel's army said it had taken control of the strategically important buffer zone along the Gaza-Egypt border, known as the Philadelphia Corridor, meaning it now controls Gaza's entire land border. Meanwhile, the Israeli military says it's carried out over 50 airstrikes across Gaza in the past day. Israeli troops are continuing to operate in Jabalia in North Gaza, where the army says soldiers are engaging Palestinian fighters who attack them. Residents in Rafah in the south say that there's been intense artillery shelling and gunfire there. Now, as you may know, on Tuesday, 3 European countries formally recognized Palestine: Norway, Spain, and Ireland. It was a symbolic recognition of Palestinian statehood, but not surprisingly, the Israeli government was seething about the move. It issued reprimands to the ambassadors of the 3 European nations and withdrew Israel's own ambassadors from the 3 capitals of Oslo, Madrid, and Dublin. Well, as I mentioned earlier, one of the countries that has recognized Palestine is Norway, in a move coordinated with Spain and Ireland. And I'm joined now in the studio by the Norwegian ambassador to Nigeria, Sven Baera. Thank you very much indeed for coming in. How does this symbolic step of recognizing Palestine as a state help the Palestinians?
Well, it doesn't help immediately. Like you just described in your headlines, the war in Gaza is terrible. It has taken tens of thousands of lives, and what we need in Gaza is a ceasefire. It's to get more humanitarian aid on the ground, and it's the release of all hostages. At the same time, we need to keep our eyes on the long-term vision, the long-term goal, and that is 2 states, Palestine and Israel, living peacefully side by side. We need to see that vision ahead. We need to believe in that, even though the situation right now is terrible.
Well, Israel says your move to recognize the state of Palestine will undermine its security, and that it encourages Hamas, and that they see this recognition as a direct result of their brutal attack on Israel on October the 7th. What do you say to that point, that this is going to be seen as a reward for Hamas?
No, we think it is exactly the opposite. We think that a 2-state solution is also to the benefit of Israeli security. So this is to the benefit of the moderate forces among the Palestinians and among the Israelis. And it's not a reward to the terrorists or the ones using violence to reach their goals.
Well, Sweden recognized Palestine as a state in 2014, but the dial did not shift at all, as far as anyone can see. So nothing's changed in concrete terms, has it?
Well, Norway has been waiting and working for a peace process and a peace agreement in the Middle East for many decades. We have had the opinion that the recognition of Palestine as a state should come as part of a peace agreement. Now, when we see what's happening on the ground in Gaza currently, our government found out that we cannot simply wait. We need to believe in the 2-state solution, and a 2-state solution requires 2 states. Therefore, we need a Palestinian state to envision a peaceful solution in the Middle East.
Well, you said that Norway has been working on this, on peace in the Middle East for many decades. I mean, what do you think's been getting in the way?
Well, if you remember, 30 years ago, we had the Oslo peace accords and the Oslo process that came out from secret negotiations between the representatives from the Palestinian Liberation Organization and the Israeli side. And this produced a quite optimistic agreement back first in 1993 in Washington, and then later also another agreement in 1995 in Egypt. Now, this was a good attempt, but it did not survive. So in 2000, it was not successful anymore.
Right. So, I mean, everybody is wondering, because usually when you extend recognition to a country, I mean, there are steps that come about as a result of that recognition. Are you likely to take any action against Israel as a result of this recognition? Are you going to use your influence against Israel? If so, how are you going to do that?
Our ambition is to work with Israel and the Palestinians.
But they don't want to work with you. They've withdrawn their ambassadors.
Well, we are not surprised that they had reactions right now. There is a lot of frustration going on in the middle of this brutal war. But we hope that in the long term, it's also possible to work with moderate forces within the Israeli people and the Palestinian people.
Now, you've talked emphatically and repeatedly in the course of this conversation about a two-state solution. Has your recognition of Palestine as a state made any sort of difference in the move towards a two-state solution?
Well, it's only a couple of days since the formal recognition.
But I mean, you talked about it over a week ago.
Yes, and so far we have not seen any results on the ground. On the contrary, it's still a brutal war going on in Gaza.
Nevertheless, there is both a military war that is taking place there, and there's also a diplomatic battle going on. Do you think the world is waking up as a result of this move of yours, at least diplomatically? Because we're hearing that many countries in Latin America are considering doing what you've done, and in a few other places.
Well, that's what we hope for, that many countries will follow and recognize Palestine formally as a state. We have seen in the UN more than 140 countries giving their support to giving the Palestinians a stronger international voice through being a full member of the UN. Now, Norway is working also with Arab states on the Arab peace plan, together with Saudi Arabia and other Arab countries. And we believe that if we get more countries to also recognize Palestine, this would be the best plan we have at this stage.
How do you think this might affect relations between Norway and the US? The US has been a very vocal supporter of Israel, and they've condemned the move that you've made. They've taken the side of Israel, suggesting that recognizing Palestine at this point would simply give support to Hamas.
Well, what we do know is that also the US is a supporter of a two-state solution in the long term. So we have been an ally of the US for many decades, and we believe that we will work together both with the US and with the Arab nations to strive for any possible option for peace.
So it hasn't affected your relations, I mean, like it has with Israel, clearly.
We have not seen any such reaction or we may not disagree on all details, but we agree on the long-term goal.
Right. And we just heard earlier, before we came on air, that the Benny Gantz, who is a member of Israel's war cabinet, has submitted a bill to the Israeli parliament calling for early elections in Israel. Last month, Mr. Gantz said he would quit the war cabinet unless Prime Minister Netanyahu came up with a post-war plan for Gaza, which is sort of the kind of thing that you're talking about. You're talking about a two-state solution as a post-war plan. But he's saying that Israel has to have its own, and he set a deadline of June the 8th. He obviously wants to remove Mr. Netanyahu from power because he's been a strong opponent of his. I mean, would it help the cause of the Palestinians, which you support, if Mr. Netanyahu was no longer in the picture?
I will not comment on that specific question, but I would like to reiterate that we would like to work with the moderate people on both the Israeli side and the Palestinian side. And together with these forces, work towards the two-state solution.
But clearly, I mean, Mr. Netanyahu has come out against the two-state solution, as well as a lot of some members of his cabinet who lean towards the right. So if he was not in the picture, because I mean previous Israeli governments have supported the two-state solution, if he's not in the picture, would that clear the way?
Well, I will not comment on that, but Norway has been very clear on our strong criticism of the recent policies and the warfare Israel is carrying out right now in Gaza.
Okay, I want to thank you very much indeed, Ambassador Svein Baera, for coming in and talking to us. And he is, of course, the Norwegian ambassador to Nigeria. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.